question for you today is, are you experiencing your dreams every day, or are you waiting for someday? If your life doesn't reflect your most important priorities, our guest has wisdom, experience, and very practical actions you can take to make that change. So I am Dr. Kathryn Bingham, founder of Leadistics, veteran and woman-owned small business that serves the needs of executives, entrepreneurs, and professionals to elevate their leadership, change their life, change their work, and change the world. I'm also the author of the newly published Driving Pink. But today I have Richie Norton, who is an award-winning author, serial entrepreneur, executive coach to CEOs, and on Marshall Goldsmith's top 100 coaches list, which I think is awesome. Richie lives with his family on the North Shore of Oahu, Hawaii. He's the CEO of Product, which is a full-service global entrepreneurship solution helping businesses go from idea to market. And he's taught and mentored countless men and women and been featured in numerous top publications. So we will be talking about Richie's soon to be released book, AntiTime Management, Reclaim Your Life and Revolutionize Your Results with the Power of Time Tipping. And what I have here is a galley copy. You can't quite get it yet, but I'm going to tell you how to get it. So I could literally spend 10 more minutes listing accolades, but I want to give airtime to the awesome stories and insight that Richie will be sharing. I feel like he is a human being and not just a human doing. So Richie, welcome.
I'm also an alien, so I don't know.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Yeah. So I started
that was
with
a wonderful
question.
Intro.
Yeah. I started with a question about living our priorities today. And you have some pretty profound experiences that influenced your journey. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Well, I thought about like many of us, success and what it means for a long time. But one of the things I focused on was family. And I would talk to millionaires, a few billionaires here and there, and they would tell me that work-life balance doesn't exist, even though they wanted it. And I agree that it's kind of a myth. And but what I didn't like is when they'd say, they have all this money, but they have no time. And I would do this research about how people can create the life they want without having to sacrifice that life in the process. Because so many entrepreneurs and dreamers, they have this idea of they want to start something and they sacrifice all of their time for this thing. Mm-hmm. They'll start a business to have more time with their family or whatever it is, only to lose all their time inside this new business. And I thought that was kind of ironic. My brother-in-law lived on and off with us for about 5 years. And one day out of nowhere, he passed away in his sleep at the age of 21. And when this happened, it was obviously crushing. And instead of getting into all the details of everything, I remember reflecting on it and just thinking, he didn't get the chance to grow old and retire like we're told we'll do one day, like we're told we'll get to work and sacrifice all these things to one day have the life that you want. That wasn't true for him. He lived a great life, but he didn't get to grow old. And it just made me start thinking that life is short, and that's not just some cliche, even though we say it all the time. We really don't have as much time as we think we do. And life is also long. And sometimes there's more time to do the things we want to do. But because we don't know, it inherently means that we should do and become right now. A few years later, we had a son, our fourth son, and we named him Gavin after my brother-in-law. His name was Gavin. And this sweet baby brought us so much joy and happiness and love, and kind of filled the hole, the namesake, that Uncle Gavin left. But he got this cough, and it was a a baby cough is what babies do sometimes. When we took him to the doctor and they said he's just normal, he's totally fine. It persisted. They said it might be RSV. They said he's going to be fine. One evening, night, actually, it got kind of hard for him to breathe. We brought him into the emergency room and they kept us there for quite some time. After way longer than it should have been, they finally figured out that he had contracted something called pertussis, also known as whooping cough.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just too much on his little body. And he'd been getting the shots and all the things that babies get. So at this time in the world, there was actually it was happening to a lot of children. And I remember one night the nurse came in and said, you need to stay the night. And it was a weird thing to say because we always stayed the night, obviously. And she was just trying to let us know this is serious. He's probably not going to make it, without saying that. They brought in a crash cart. His body was just filled with all those liquids, all the tubes, all the things that were keeping him alive. They took all those out, and I held him for a moment and handed him to my wife, who was sitting in a rocking chair, and I was on my knees, and I just had my hand on his little heart, and we sang him lullabies, and we just waited and loved him until he slipped away. And as a parent, it's obviously your worst nightmare, and it's something that's I'm still talking about it today. And I'm telling you this story because it shaped the way I look at everything, and the way I look at time, the way I look at who I am, the way I look at who my family are, who my children are. It changed everything. Mm-hmm. And someone asked me, what did you learn from your brother-in-law and your son passing away? And I came up with something that I call Gavin's Law, which is live to start to live. Yep. And the idea is when you live to start those ideas that are pressing on your mind, you really will start living. And regardless of whether you think you have enough time, education, experience, or money, the older you get, the more experience you get, the more time you have, the more money you make, you realize you still need more time, more education, more experience, and more money. It never goes away. And so I use this idea of Gavin's Law to frame and explain and assign meaning to the things that I do. And people ask, isn't it hard? All these, people, tragedies happen. It's outside of your control. Yes, I believe you assign meaning to the things that happen. And in that sense, you can try and move things forward. Real quick, a couple other things. We had 3 foster kids, and we had them for 2 years. They came and went. We wanted and hoped to adopt them, but that didn't work out. And that hurts in a different way because they're gone and we don't know where they are. We don't know if they're okay. My wife had a stroke and lost her memory, and she got it back, and things are okay. But that was a massive scare that still impacts us today. I had a son that got hit by a car crossing the road. And he should be dead, but he's okay now. He's out there riding big 20-foot waves and doing his thing. I share these things because no matter how much we dream, no matter how big it is, even if we don't wait and we do it right now, there's still going to be outside factors that are outside of our control. And this shouldn't scare us. It should only help us treat time and the people we love more preciously, and not precious like it's so precious I'm not going to do anything. I'm talking about so precious that you're willing to do whatever it takes to put your priorities actually first instead of at the end of some endless timeline. Anyways, so there's my introduction about how I think and why.
But that's so important, because I think people need to understand their why. And sometimes I think they need to borrow somebody else's why to get them thinking about, well, maybe I haven't had all of those experiences, but if those could happen to anyone else, they could also happen to me. And therefore, how do we live our life differently? I love the and I keep it on it's on my Instagram. Today, not someday. Today, not someday. Live for today, not someday. I'm I'm going to start getting into some of the elements of the book, but I'd really like you to start with the symbol. So folks, you can look at the front, there's a prism here. So we have some light coming in and it splits off. Can you tell us why you chose that as an important symbol to put right front and center on the book?
In the book, I talk about something just a term I invented. I call it prismic productivity. The idea is asymmetrical results, how one thing you do can turn into an array of many blessings, many things, many options, as opposed to what a lot of people do is they'll try 1,000 different things, and some of them might be good, some are better than others, but they end up getting maybe one result or no result. So it's the opposite. Also, when you do the correct thing, the corrects are not the right word. When you do the aligned thing with what your vision is, when you do the aligned thing, it actually crowds out all the distractions. Even if you're highly distractible, you can get hyper focused on the right stuff, so to speak, the aligned stuff, and it can be transformed into many, many good things. And people go, how is that possible? And go, well, one, what's the one decision you can make that will eliminate all the other decisions? So you don't have to keep making a bunch of decisions unnecessarily. Two, most people, and I'm pretty sure most of us, are acting and doing things that are not in alignment, meaning they're not necessarily bad, but they're totally unnecessary. We set goals that are not in alignment with the result that we want. To me, goals are not ends. Goals are means. Goals are means to something bigger, the goal beyond the goal. Strengths are tools. People make strengths and they make goals ends unto themselves, and they forever get obsessed with habits. But what if it's not the habit that's going to get you? Sure, it's great to like perfect a habit, but what if it's not the habit that's aligned with the thing that you want? So in essence, when you start thinking beyond habits, beyond goals, beyond strengths, which are all good things, you start actually thinking about ways that will get you what you really want. For example, if I had a guy tell me he's making $250,000 a year, and he's an executive, he's an accountant, he wants to quit because he has no time for his family or for travel or for his dreams or for his personal health. He just has no time, so to speak. Entrepreneurs do the same thing. They borrow old time management systems and bring them into their entrepreneurial pursuits, only to realize that they have no time, and they still don't know why, because it's the status quo. They literally think that being their own boss would give them more time. And you know what? It can, but you have to work differently. It's about how you operate, not what you're operating on. Not about how much money you make. It's about how you make money that makes the difference in your freedom.
Absolutely.
If money was the key, there wouldn't be sad millionaires strapped to what are they called? The swivel chair, and wishing that they could get, be outside. Exactly. That wouldn't be a thing. Anyways, he tells me, I'll skip through this, but he tells me he wants to like spend months out of the year in Italy and whatever. I'm like, what's your plan? He says he can start a gym, but he needs 2 gyms. And it's going to take 5 years, and then it's going to be profitable. And then he can finally live this dream. And I'm like, awesome. How old are your kids? He goes 13 and 15. And I was nice to him, but I was just like, so when your kids are 18 and 20, and they might be out of the house. When they're 18 and 20, you're finally going to have time for them. This is your dream. See, it's not that the gym was a bad idea. It was that the way he would operate the gym was completely out of alignment with the goal.
Absolutely.
The goal of the goal, completely out of alignment. I mean, sure, he could start, but if you start thinking this way, how do I bake in time from the start? How do I bake in freedom from the start? How do I bake in autonomy from the start? Like, you don't bake a cake with sugar. Let me say that another way.
I like that analogy.
You like that?
Without sugar. You don't make a cake without sugar. Expect it to be sweet. That was awesome.
Exactly.
The things you're just talking about right now, you begin with this concept of final cause. I think that's a really important thing to help people understand, is this idea of alignment, but starting with understanding what is your final cause, right? So can you share a little bit what that
Yeah,
is and how that works for folks?
thank you. And also, I just want everyone to know that I love that you've read the book and you know what questions to ask. You're amazing. You're amazing. You're amazing. So Aristotle had this idea of four causes. And the idea was that you would need materials, you need a design, you need an agent or someone to make it, and you finally have this thing. And the example goes, if you're going to make a table, you're going to need wood, you need a design, you need someone to make it, then you have the table, and eventually final cause. So like a sunflower seed does not become an oak tree. An acorn does. A sunflower seed becomes a sunflower. So in essence, the idea is with alignment, make sure you're planting the right seeds to create the right result. But to me, and in our day, and probably in his day too, if you were to think of what's the purpose of the table, if it was some legacy table you're going to have in your house for ages, sure, maybe that's the right way to do it. Maybe you do need to spend time and money and hire someone to make something gorgeous. But if it's because you have some people coming into town and you want to have a little fancy dinner with them, I mean, you can get Uber Eats from the fanciest restaurant in town and not have to wait in line. You don't need the table, the money, the time at all. If it's just I want to have time with family and hang out, you can do a picnic at the beach or at the park or wherever you live. So when you move to final cause, it is possible to also remove all the things, possibly all, legitimately, maybe not all, but possibly all the things you're doing, and realize none of them are necessary. Nothing will give you back more of your freedom than stop doing the things that are unnecessary. So
I love that.
the
Later in the
framework,
book, you call those
yeah,
ghost steps, amongst other
that's
things,
right.
right? And things we just really don't need to be
Yes.
doing. Now, if we're clear
It,
on our final cause, right? If we're clear, then we can employ, in your book, you have time tipping. Can you share some of the differences between that traditional time management and the anti-time management, and how a listener really can apply that? In other words, just have that
yep.
understanding. What's that difference that you're talking about?
So quick example, and then I'll share exactly what you're asking. I had someone who also read the book, or they heard me on some mastermind or something, and she did a little post on Instagram, and she's with her daughter, and she's like just playing, like just they're going out to do something they normally wouldn't do, or she finally had time to do something she would have hoped she could do, and she said on the video, she says, I'm tipping time. And what I mean is, you can take that idea that you want way out in the future and actually make it happen immediately, either the actual thing or the essence of the thing, and create space for more of it, like making the cake sweet from the start instead of lying to yourself and telling yourself it's going to be sweet at the end when there's no sweetness inside, right? So time management, the actual word means control. So traditional time management, people don't get this today because we don't think about it. But I've done the research. When you go back and look, time management was designed to squeeze every drop of blood, sweat, and tears of every single worker they possibly could to be more productive. It was never designed to give anybody freedom. It was the opposite. It was a prison. Time management was and is a prison.
Francis Winslow Taylor.
There you go. There you go. Yes,
Yeah.
Taylorism. And so the idea is to move from a prison to a prison of time to a prism of time. That's why I have this thing, prismic productivity. But so to make it real, it's not about controlling time itself. It's about who, because you can't, but it's who controls your time. So time management is they control your time. Time tipping, anti-time management is I control my time.
Yes.
Time management is, they took my space. They took up this area. They tell me exactly what to do, which maybe sometimes people like. So it's a choice, but that's the important thing, is to realize it's a choice, it's not forced. And move to know I create space. I make time. I decide when I'm going to do things, and on and on and on. It's moving from being controlled whether we chose to be controlled or not, and realizing that we are, and moving to freedom. And the idea is that you still can get all the results and more, even inside of a workplace, possibly, depending on your choices and what you want to do. You can actually get more done and still have autonomy when you have the ability and the availability baked in to what you're doing.
I think you can tie that to, you know, I really liked when Greg McKeown's book came out. It was Essentialism, and he had something very similar to help people understand. Look, you could plan your life, or people will do it for you. So it's a choice. And if you abdicate making an intentional choice with what your priorities are and working towards those, then you're saying it's okay for somebody else to set those priorities in your life. And so I think it's really important that people get this piece of making those choices. And then, you know, I've already made a post on this, as you well know. There's a mindset piece. And one of the first quotes that I'm like, this is the best right here, was the not saving your dreams, that dreams melt like ice cream. So the key thinking, what key thinking and tactics, you've already started down describing some of these. So in the book, some of these are the time tipping, which you've just alluded to, things like project stacking and the work syncing. How do those things help us succeed in attaining that final cause?
Okay, that's great question. First, let's just, it's really, there's a lot there. There's a lot
to unpack, but you pick it wherever you want to stick your finger in.
So we have to remember, it's important for people to understand that timing is a decision. So, you know, I'm a student of the Coveys, and they would say begin with the end in mind. They never said begin with means in mind. Everyone thinks that means are the end. They think their habit, they think their goal is the end. When I wrote The Power of Starting Something Stupid, my last book, people would come to me with their stupid idea, and it would be successful. They'd make money. And they'd say, but it wasn't what I really wanted. Well, what did you really want? And I'll just keep saying the same theme because there could be other things, but for the sake of themes, it was, I wanted more time and freedom in an autonomy and be able to travel with my family. But now I don't, because I have this business. Now, that didn't happen very often when people work with me, because I get really like close to that. I'm like, let's not let that happen. But when people do this, I realize no one wants to start, not no one, most people don't want to start a business, including founders of huge companies that get venture capital. I talked to a guy about it just yesterday. They don't start a business for this life-changing world, revolutionary idea business to change the world. They start it because they think that once it's successful, they'll get something else. This is why they start things. But they two-step. Why would you then start this business when you could have started 1,000 other businesses, or done 1,000 other things, or done 0 of those things to get that result? This is extremely important to understand. So timing's a decision. So the idea is to make room for more time. And you can do that through EDO. Eliminate the things that are unnecessary. Delegate things out that can still get done, but don't need to be done by you. Outsource. Pay other people, experts, to do it. And yes, of course, and I'll get deep into this if we want to, but you can have multiple projects that actually are aligned so that one action makes many things happen. And then you can sync your work, or work sync in a way so that even your work is asynchronous, ironically, so that things can get done whether you're there or whether you're not.
Right.
All these things are totally possible. But the main idea is this: if someone to think it in their head, if you ever go to Europe, you'll also see this in Japan and other places, but I've seen it in China as well. You can see all over the place. But if someone creates some sort of castle or structure or fortress, sometimes there's a moat around it. To me, the castle is the dream. The moat is what protects it. But many people in today's workforce instead of building a castle, they start in a moat and they think it's going to lead them to the castle, when in reality, they'll stay in the moat forever and never reach the castle. In other words, most people work in a way that they think will eventually create a castle, when the way it's done, even in architecture and, in buildings and fortresses, you build the castle and then you create the work to protect it. They can happen simultaneously, etc. But if there's nothing to protect, what are you protecting? So we're fooling ourselves. There's tons to protect. So first the castle, then the moat. And in doing that, you can put, here's the framework, your actual purpose front and center. So you're working from the dream, not toward the dream, which changes the way you make all your decisions. Then you can actually prioritize, because most people put their priorities last. Even though priority means first, it means prior, it means precede. You look at any time management, any spreadsheet, the goal is at the end every time.
Yeah.
That means they make decisions based on not the goal, but something they think will lead to the goal, when they could flip it.
Right.
So you have purpose, then you have projects. So if you have your personal, your professional, people, play, goals, which create the goal of the goal, the final cause, that support your dream from the start, then you, by doing this is where it gets crazy. Then you can decide how you get paid. Because if I decide how I get paid first, it means I move to New York City and I live in a place that I don't really want to be. Right. And I work in a factory, and I'm told that when I'm 65, I can retire and finally have a little bit of money to live, and then I die. This is what we've been doing for 200 years. Yeah. But if I you can still get paid first, but if I put my payments around my living of the dream, then no, all the options are open. I'm going to try and get paid in a way that enhances my lifestyle, not leading to a lifestyle that may never come to pass.
I really like that. I'm going to revisit something you just said, and then I'm going to come back to that and just thought in just a minute. One of the things that you talked about in the EDO and getting things done is this idea of expert sourcing. And you built a company product in order to help people do physical things. And so people may need to outsource and get things done. You also use the term flash team. You talk about freelancers. But one of the things that this idea, if they start making their list, the next step is a little wonky for some people. Well, how do I get them? How do I find these freelancers? How do I go about that? Do you have a couple thoughts about or recommendations for if somebody's made their list and okay, now I need a website built, or I need to find an expert who does fill in the blank, whatever it might be. Where do they start their search to find those experts that they can collaborate with?
The issue today is not that they're hard to find, is that there's billions with a B of them. Yeah. Billions. Yeah. With a B.
Yeah. And that's how it's so overwhelming.
Yeah. And they're available. They're expert. They know it better than you. Yeah. They are honestly extremely affordable unless they're not. And I guess it depends on the situation. And they're everywhere. So, I mean, it really comes down to trust. It's not about finding these people, because, I mean, you just ask for a recommendation and someone will tell you. You post on any social media thing, and if you have people that are in this space or your space or know someone, they'll tag someone, share it. You'll probably have 10 to 20 referrals overnight. But if you go on like one of these freelancer websites like Guru or Elance or Upwork or whatever's available now, you go in there, you type in the things that you want, and you will wake up tomorrow with anywhere between 50 and 100 proposals to people to do whatever you want at various prices. The problem really isn't finding people anymore. It's you having the courage to be specific about what you want. I need this done expertly at this price. Is there anyone willing to do it? Yes or no? And at that point, you can decide. And everyone will say, I don't have any money. And you go, that's fair. If you don't have any money, yeah, you shouldn't be doing this. What are you doing? You have no money. What should you be doing? Pre-selling? You should be pre-selling. You should be selling something that you don't have yet, but you will, because someone's really cool and you go on Kickstarter and someone's buying it before it's invented, right? So there's never time, education, experience, and money should never stop anyone from doing anything. But it's finding someone. When I find people hiring people, or with like outsourcing for pay, or they delegate to someone who should already be doing it and they like it, you don't have to pay them, it's just someone that does it. What I find is they choose in their mind, they literally choose, I don't want to pay someone. That means I'm going to hire someone really, really cheap that literally doesn't know what they're doing.
Right.
And I'm going to become a micromanager and I'm going to train them. So now they just, let's not be angry or like judge these people. But then what happens is they've now given themselves 2 jobs when they wanted 0 jobs. Now they have to teach someone how to do it while they do it. They have to do it and teach someone how to do it. And then they get frustrated and they quit and they go, this doesn't work. But that person, they didn't do anything wrong. They got exactly what they asked for. They wanted someone that didn't know what they were doing to work for them so they could train them because they thought they'd save some money. But with the same money, you could hire an expert on a project who loves doing this, that can do it in an hour instead of a week. Okay. Yep. Now, of course, there's more things, and it could be some huge company and this or that. But at the end of the day, there are people who want to do this work, who are willing to do it at a price that you're willing to pay. And most of us aren't even willing to think it's possible. So whoever's out there trying to this out, like right now on your podcast, we said, who out there could build a website, and who could do this, and who could do it for $100, who could do it for $1,000, who could do it for 10,000? What does it all include? But in the next 24 hours, we'd probably have, I don't know, a dozen or more proposals that we could sift through and finally make a decision, or none at all. But most people are never willing to do the research because they're too scared. And that's really important, just to have courage and start asking and doing the research.
I agree. Now, I'm going to circle back. I said I would circle back. I think one of the things that you talk about is that we are conditioned, or have been conditioned, for this idea of deferred compensation, right? And this is especially true of women in the workplace, where men are, according to the data and the research, hired and promoted on their potential, and women have to demonstrate performance before they get some of the equivalent opportunities. So this idea of embracing final cause and time tipping frees us to create this intentionally designed or redesigned life. What are some of the freedoms and rewards that you experience every day because you've made these choices in your life? So instead of deferred compensation, you are able to embrace these freedoms.
That's great. That's a great thought. Let me say it this way. Anything I say is like, oh, wow, Richie Norton did it, and Richie has all this stuff. He spent all this time doing it. Sure. But I have countless, like as you're mentioning, countless examples, from people all over the planet, so many different,
you've got a zillion stories in here of real people. So yeah.
But if we're recording this in 2022, if you were to think back, and anyone listening to this, to 2012, 10 years ago, I would just ask you, are you the same person today? And I'm pretty sure the answer is no. You were a different person in thought. You were probably a different person physically. You were a different person in circumstance. You're probably a different person in how you were paid, how much you were paid. Probably you may even look in the mirror and not recognize yourself anymore, or maybe you do, but you are a different person in 2012. So when you think about 10 years from now, 32, that's crazy to think about. The ironic thing is that we think that who we are today is also who we will still be in 10 years, but maybe maybe having reached certain goals or certain milestones or certain payments. The thing is, actually, you're the same like being, but actually you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those goals you wanted in 2012, they rotted on the vine. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want them anymore. Not only are they not necessarily, did you not achieve them, you don't want them. There's so many goals of 2012 Richie that I would just like, why was that even a goal? So what I'm trying to say is it's so important that take that dream that you have today in 2022 that you think might take you 2 to 5 to 10 years, and just know that you are going to change into a different person, whether you actively engage or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to happen by environment. So it's really important to say those things that I want in the future. How can I do this thing now without these other terrible things happening in a way that helps me enjoy that experience today? How do I show up differently? So when my wife and I first got married, which is we're coming up on our 20th anniversary, by the way,
Awesome.
we told ourselves we wanted to be able to, thanks. We told ourselves we wanted to be able to take our kids to school in the morning and pick them up, and later we started doing some homeschool stuff. We started going on the road for 6 months at a time. We've traveled all over the world with them. The decision for me, before Facebook was even created, before social media was maybe even a thing, over 20 years ago, I started working from my cell phone when cell phones folded, and this created a forcing function that said, when I have challenges, when there are things happening, if I'm not allowing myself, quote unquote, allowing myself to go into an office or to be working from a computer that's plugged into the wall or whatever, it allowed me to be creative and to find ways to create the environment that I'm in now. So today, for example, right before we got on this call, I dropped my wife off at Pilates, which is close enough for her to walk, but it's fun for us to hang out together. I have a son coming back from Africa. He was serving there for like 3 weeks doing some service projects. I have another son in Detroit doing service projects there right now. These are teenagers. I have a son down below telling me he's trying to decide if he's going to go mountain climbing or if he's going to go this weekend, or if he's going to go camping on the beach with his friends. Like the freedom and the flexibility is all there, but at the same time, look, we're doing a podcast together and I have a book launch coming out. In other words, all these things can happen simultaneously. It was just a decision of how and when, not a decision of waiting for outside forces to tell me what to do. So in other words, I have autonomy, and in some things I have an ability, but to me, I've tried my best with every decision I make now to have availability for the things that I want to do. And when I pick up, as they say, one end of the stick, you also pick up the other. So when people say they don't have all this stuff they want, you can just be really bold and say, but did you choose that? And if you chose that, you can make a different choice, right? Oh no, there's so much things out of my control. I get it. I of all people, I get that. There are also some things that you can. And how can we make meaning and money at the same time by deciding final cause and acting from it and not endlessly toward it? I could be doing all these same things that you and I are doing right now on this podcast and not have my children doing these things, not having the freedom and time or money for all these other outside activities. But it was a choice, and it's not easy always, but it can be more simple than you would imagine. It's actually a learnable skill. Time tipping is a learnable skill.
And I think the commitment and creativity to make things succeed or move us towards in the moment through our choices is really important. And it is something, people can say or look at the book, and as you say, hey, Richie Norton, look at what he has and has done. And they're negating all the years of effort that you've put in and
Yeah.
consistently and consistently and consistently made that choice. But the other thing is what you're talking about and what you have in the book is supremely accessible. You have stories of stay-at-home moms. You have stories of grad students. You have stories of the guy who was in Paris and his former boss offered him $800,000 to come back after he'd made the choice to say, no, I want to live for my family first, right? I want to have the time and make these life priorities front and center. And that is, as you wrote and as he described for himself, a test of our values, a test of our commitment to our values when we have this awesome carrot dangling in front of us. But we still can choose. And you know what? If we don't like what we chose, we can always change our mind, right? We can always.
I love that.
That's a
it's
big
true.
phrase I use when mentoring students. I have some, as an alumni of different universities, I go and do student mentoring in the business schools and leadership schools. And I tell them, try this, try it anyway, try it. If it scares you, you can always change your mind, right?
It's true.
You know,
I love it. I love it. I mean, one of the big ideas in the book too is to value your time, not time your values.
Exactly.
This is being congruent. This is being authentic. Most people, they'll sacrifice some stuff, their character, you know what I mean? And for some success. And what's cool about anti-time management with time tipping is that even if the projects you work on fail, the ones that you might be measuring your success on, your actual final cause, the essence of your living, your lifestyle, your family, your availability, your time does not. You can't fail because you're living from you just try new things that enhance it and protect it. There's no 10 years down the road I'm a success. No, I am today a success. I choose to do these things to protect the success. And if this project fails, it doesn't matter because I'm going to build on top of that pivot or not do it at all. I'm glad I learned today that it wasn't going to work than 40 years from now waiting for it. Ghost steps become phantom lives. So the idea is, how can I live this real thing right now?
Awesome. So I know we're bumping up against some time. So I have a couple little things I'd like to do. Number one, I'd like to pause our conversation and invite those people who've sat and listened or watched us for the past 40 minutes and ask you a question. I want you to think about if you'd like to move to action today. And I want you to write in the comments, are you just gonna keep on living in this world of traditional time management? That's your option number one. Option number two is, now that you've heard about some of these opportunities and you can learn more in the book and other ways, we'll talk about that in a second. Are you ready to explore this idea? And in that case, you are ready to change. And number three is, wow, you've just embraced this. You are ready to go and grow on your anti-time management skills. So put that down in the comments and let us know, what it is you're thinking and why that 1, 2, or 3, traditional, ready to change, or anti-time management is the right thing for you. And then before I close out, Richie, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave folks with?
Stop managing time, start prioritizing attention.
I love that. All right. So thank you so much for your time. I want to thank everyone who has spent some time to listen to this conversation with Richie and I do ask that you please subscribe to the channel so that you know when the next awesome conversation hits the feed, as well as, share how to grow your leadership and live for today, not someday. Let's go back. Anti-time management. The official launch date is August 30th, 2022, but you can pre-order the book right now on Amazon, where you will also find Richie's other book and a link We'll put that link in the description. Here's a couple of ways that you can reach out and connect with Richie. He has a contact link on his website. So Richie Norton, RichieNorton.com/contact. You can subscribe to his email, same website, richienorton.com/email-subscribe. And then I will also include in the description, so you could just find them there, Richie's handles for LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And I'm also going to include his bio, because even though he has shared some really important and profound stories, there's even more. There is a lot to this man, and I am just really grateful that we've spent some time today. So with that, I want to encourage you to go forth and do great things. Thank you so much.